Welcome to Productive Joy with Dr. Christie, where fun meets action.
Hi, friends. Welcome to Productive Joy. I have a fabulous guest with us today. Peter H. Reynolds is lots of things. He is a New York Times bestselling author and illustrator. He is the creator of The Dot. He is an award-winning educational media developer. He is also a global movement starter. He's a twin. He's a father. He's a grandfather. He has a picture book studio, and he helps build professional development for teachers so that they get their batteries recharged so the kids can do the same. And today, he's our guest on Productive Joy. Peter, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Great to be, Great to connect the dots with you today. It sounds like we're definitely kindred spirits. We share a very similar mission to help activate people in creative ways and make sure that joy is part of that journey. So lots to share.
Yes, definitely. So I have been teaching teachers my entire career. And so to say we're kindred spirits is very, very true. What would you want to say to all the educators in the world right this minute that you think they need to hear?
Well, number one, thank you. Thank you for being an educator. And whether you're a formal or informal educator, if you're around kids of the next generation and you're inspiring them to be the best versions of themselves, that's a lot of work. And I wish that you were paid double or triple, had all the resources at your fingertips, but also the support of communities. What you're doing is so incredibly important. So my first words are thank you. Thank you so much for what you do. And then my second part is make sure that you are taking care of yourselves, right? Because of course, we love our kids and we would do anything for them, but you need to take care of yourself. Make sure that you have joy in your life and that you are taking care of your creative batteries. So we want to recharge those. And I do that through storytelling. So I have books happen to be one of my favorite tools. I have other tools as well, films and talking and activities, but books are one of the most efficient ways of transporting ideas and inspiration. And you can get it in, 5 to 6 minutes with a good picture book.
Yes, you can. And you are an expert in all things picture books, and you've done some pretty awesome things. So I'm more excited for my daughter to hear this episode than even me. So I've been an educator for 26 years. She's been an educator for 3. She teaches kindergarten, and she is exceptional at it. And so when I texted her this morning and said, hey, guess who I'm interviewing? She was so excited. And I think there are lots of humans who would be excited about what you do. So we can go in about 19 different directions. But I'm going to let you choose. You can either tell us what got you into this space or why you think this is a space worth being in. Those are 2 different directions we can go. You choose. It's like a choose your own adventure book.
I love that, which I love. I love choose your own adventures. And I kind of have done that in my life. I have chosen wisely some interesting points in my life that I chose to go in a direction guided by my North Star. That's what I actually wrote a book called The North Star. And it's a metaphor about someone who is lost and discovers that there's a map. There's been this map right above them this whole time. And in this story, you see our friend win their way out of the swamp using the stars. And I use that as a metaphor for kids and grown-up kids too, because I write books for all ages. Some people call them children's books. I call them picture books. And picture books are really good for busy adults. It doesn't take that much time and you get a little dose of inspiration. But I think that idea of helping people ignore the naysayers and to listen to their heart and remind them that they actually know, or you know a lot more than you're giving yourself credit for. And a lot of times we get a lot of incoming advice. There are a lot of self-help books and sites and voices. And the most important voice that you have is the one inside of you. And I think that we have to make time for that. We have to make that time for adults and also allow kids to also make time to hear themselves so that they can answer the most important question that I think that you could be asked in your 12 years experience in school, which is, who are you? Who are you? And you know what? That's going to take your entire lifetime to answer. But the sooner you start, the easier it's going to be for educators and parents to figure out, like, what's the right book for you, right? What's the right experience, the right mentor, the best, whatever tool it happens to be to help nurture your, what I call it, your North Star or your constellation. So that's why I got into it. I really felt compelled after having spent time in public education, especially. I felt like we had kind of lost the plot. There was a lot of standardized testing going on, a lot of fluorescent lighting, a lot of adhering to the curriculum, and which is fine. It's great to say, here are all these wonderful things to learn, but if you don't turn the camera around to the child and say, interview them and say, who are you? Like you're doing for me, right? You're getting to know who I am. If we did that with kids, I think we'd be way, way ahead in public education.
I think we would, for sure. But I think we'd be way ahead in life, right? Like, I think we can zoom out and take it out of public education and just say, in general, do we know who we are? And if we don't, are we actively looking for who it is that we're meant to be? I know you talk a lot about that unique genius. I don't think you use that exact phrasing, but that's the phrasing that always has stuck with me, is that each one of us has very unique gifts. And when we're exercising those gifts, then we can get the best possible outcome, right? So my first question with that is, who taught you about your unique gift?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting because I am a twin. As you mentioned, I have a twin brother, Paul, who is 14 minutes older than me, although technically, right, that cell split at the same moment.
Yeah.
And, you're born, you don't know you're a twin until people start telling you you're a twin. And of course, the question that would always come up is, are you identical? Which is kind of a weird thing to ask a child, right? Are you identical? So what is that? That's a long word. What does that mean? Oh, that means that you're exactly the same as something else.
Right.
And I think that was kind of formational for both of us, for Paul and myself. Well, we are being called identical, and yet we are two separate beings. We definitely share a lot of the same things, right? Because, we grew up together. We experienced, our frame of reference is very, very similar, but we are very different people. And getting to know who I was important to figure out, like, how am I not Paul?
Yeah.
Right? How is Paul not Peter? And discerning those, as you say, right, the gifts, right? You're sprinkled with gifts when you're born. You have to kind of figure out, what are they? And so yeah, those are my thoughts.
So did your parents guide you into being different? Or because so I'm a mother of twins. My twins are a boy-girl set. They're 24. I got asked if they were identical quite frequently. I'm like, friends, they have fully different anatomical parts. No, they are not identical. But what you're saying about the connotation of that is huge. And I know Jackson and Chloe got compared all the time, and they could not have been more different. So where did that difference start to come into play?
Yeah, I would say, well, we had a big family, so there were 7 people packed into a small house, and you kind of have to fend for yourself,
right?
So kind of figuring out who you are. You were kind of left to figure that out on your own. We did have very creative parents, although they were in accounting by day, but at nighttime, Mom was reading books and crafting and doing a lot of civic work. And Dad loved his workshop, and he would make things out of wood. And I think seeing that they had interests and passions was really important for us to see that you can also do more than one thing in life, right? So you can, yes, I'm an accountant, but I am also a creative human being. And that creativity can come out in lots of different ways, especially service to others. I think that was something that my parents led by example. Both of them were civically engaged, and they didn't just unplug from work and turn the TV on. They were out there in the community doing stuff. And they just were loving. You know what? They loved us, and they let us be who we are. They definitely did not say, oh, actually, they were very they were always just cheering us on. And the one thing my mom would always say is she would never take no as an answer, right? If someone said it can't be done, that just fired her up. And she really taught us, her favorite word was ridiculous. She had a British accent, so it was very funny when she would say it. She would hear we'd say, oh, they say that, it's too late to go on the trip to France. We were supposed to fill out the form last week. And she's like, ridiculous, and she would sort of send us marching back in and advocate for ourselves. So yeah, we're really lucky. Hazel and Keith, two lovely humans.
That is beautiful. And I'm so glad that they taught you that and that you chose to then spend your career teaching others the same thing, right? That it's ridiculous to think that your dot can't make a difference or that your one thing can't make a difference. So I would love for you to explain the dot to our listeners. So in case they haven't run across this international phenomenon, then they can now. So if you're watching, you can see the dot book, but tell us about the concept.
Sure. The Dot is a story that I wrote 23 years ago and inspired by a little girl that I met. She was in first grade and it was in a workshop that I was doing. And I asked kids, just warm up, draw anything. It doesn't have to, a flower, a rocket ship, whatever makes you happy. This little girl's drawing. I come over to see what she's drawing. She throws her body on top of her artwork. She would not let me see it. And at first I thought she was joking. And then she just very slowly looked at me and said, I just can't draw, which kind of broke my heart. I'm thinking, wow, she's first grade.
I'm
like, that's ridiculous, right? To use mom's word. And I thought, okay, number one instinct is I will help her. And number two, I thought, I wonder, where did she get that notion from? Mm-hmm. How does a first grader even have the vocabulary to say, I can't draw? And then I popped into my head that maybe some well-meaning adult or some clumsy adult said the perfectly wrong thing, like, oh, I can't draw, straight line with a ruler. And so I thought, I'm going to write a story for this little girl because I'm sure if there's one, there's probably two, and there's probably a boy and maybe, tens of thousands. In fact, and then it occurred to me that adults who were saying these clumsy things, they at some point were that first grader or third grader or fifth grader who said, I just can't draw.
Yeah.
And they gave up. And of course, we do not get better at the things we give up on. So it took a few months after that, but it all kind of came together. And I pictured this story about a little girl who says she couldn't draw. And fortunately, she has an amazing teacher who says, just make a mark and see where it takes you. And Vashti grabs the marker and she jabs the paper, gives the paper one jab. There's this little dot left over. When she walks into art class the next week, hanging above her teacher's desk is that little dot. And it's all framed in swirly gold. And Vashti looks at it and says, I can make a better dot than that. And it's what she needed. She opens up her watercolors and she starts painting. And then the rest of the book shows her just blossoming and blooming as an artist. She kind of had given herself permission to be brave and to dive into that blank sheet of paper. And she actually, at the end of the book, she actually helps another boy who's suffering, that same kind of trauma of, I just can't. And she helps him. And that's the lovely thing about kindness and joy is that it tends to ripple. And how wonderful that one kind gesture can ripple into many, many other kind gestures.
Peter, that is beautiful enough that I did tear up, trying not to, but as a mom, as an educator, as a leader, as a human being, hearing that story is that reminder that all we have to do is the first dot. That is productive joy. As far as I'm concerned, that is the perfect example of try, right?
Yeah.
Give it a shot. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that everyone listening, if you could find it, especially find a child, if you're grown up listening to this, find a child, draw a dot, paint a dot, and sign it. And try to withhold any comment, right? Because adults tend to They're like, well, it's not that great, but I tried. Don't even say, right? Don't denigrate your art. But it would be very powerful for kids to see you make a dot and sign it. And if you could draw even just, you don't have to frame it, although that's kind of cool too. You could find this over the top gold frame and just proudly hang it, someplace in your house or stick it on your fridge and just have your kids kind of be dazzled. And they're like, hey, we read the dot in school, which by the way, that kind of amazes me that I don't think I can go into a school and not find the dot. There's actually something called International Dot Day now,
Yeah.
celebrated in 190 countries, started 17 years ago by a teacher, and it's blossomed and bloomed into this worldwide movement of a day of creativity, September 15th-ish, I like to say, because it can be the day before or the day after. Some people do dot week, some people do dot month. Of course, I like to say that every day is dot day. Right?
Absolutely. Well, it's inspirational. It's that reminder that we don't have to be perfect at all of the things. We just have to try the thing. We have to be brave enough to try the thing. So my favorite question to ask my guests is always, what is your definition of productive joy? And I am literally leaning forward in my seat to hear your definition because I'm going to guess it's going to be a good one. No wrong. Just had to define.
Yes. Yeah. Productive joy. Well, Paul and I, one of our favorite things to say is that it is, creativity. We advocate for creativity, but we always say that it should be purposeful. And Paul's right here with me, right? Purposeful and positive.
Purposeful.
Yes, positive and purposeful. Thank you, Paul. That's why being worded twin is good. But this idea of making it matter, and I love creating stories. There are some people, they write stories to make you laugh, which is great. People make TV to make you laugh and entertain you, take your mind off the things. We get joy out of making things that cause something to happen. We like to say stories that matter, stories that move. They move you in some way, right? Like you just were moved by that story I told. I get moved, by the way, when I read the dot. I tear up at the end when she is taking care of this other child.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think seeing kids be kind to each other is really, that moves me, and it brings me joy. Also brings me to tears too. So I think when we can spend a day making things, creating things, and realize that it will help others, for me, it brings me great joy. And I think when you can make your day matter, what better kind of day can you have?
What a beautiful definition. And I've been doing this for a while now. I'm about at 240 episodes or so. And I always ask this question, but I don't ever get exactly the same answer. There are commonalities, however, and some of the commonalities you just mentioned, it's often external facing, right? It's often something that we're doing to help others. It's also something that purposeful and positive, meaning that this is something you want to be doing, right? Something that you find that joy in. And what I find to be joy-filled and what you find to be joy-filled don't have to be the same, but we need to know what it is. It goes back to your unique genius statement that everybody has unique things, unique gifts that we're good at. I like how you said they're sprinkled on us. I think that what happens when we become adults is we think it's fixed, and maybe that happens really young too, but I think about my daughter's kindergarten class and watching those children with their bright eyes, excited when they have a teacher like Chloe. But there are teachers who take that bright light and squash it and unfortunately are just so bitter and angry. And it doesn't just happen in the teacher's face. I'm thinking about the adults I know, and I'm thinking about the ones that choose joy and the ones that struggle to find it. And I am just so glad that you are creating for people the opportunity to find that joy.
Thank you. And there's a sequel to The Dot. There's actually two other books. It's a trilogy about creativity, so I call it the Create Trilogy. And Ish is the sequel. And The Dot is really about getting started. And then, of course, you have to keep going, right? If you're going to be better at whatever craft it is, whether it's writing or singing or dancing or running an organization, you have to keep going. So a lot of times people will say the perfectly wrong thing, right? To just, to kind of squash you. And so Ish is a story about a little boy who is drawing. He's drawing away. He's quite happy, and he's drawing a vase of flowers. And his brother Leon laughs and says, "What is that?"
Mm.
He's crushed by that, and eventually he tries to make his drawings look right, and you see him struggle in the book, and finally he gives up. That's it. He's done. He quits. Pencil down. And then he realizes that his sister has been watching him, his little sister, Marisol. And she actually grabs one of these crumpled sheets of paper. She runs away. He follows her up into her room, comes into her room, and hanging on her walls is this crumpled gallery. Of course, she's been collecting all of his artwork. And she's like, "Oh, this is one of my favorites." And he's like, "Oh, it was supposed to be a vase of flowers. It doesn't look like one." She says, "Well, it's vase-ish." And he's like, "Vase-ish?" Then he looks at all of his drawings and they're holding away, and he realizes that they are ish. And you see him blossom and bloom, having discovered this kind of ishful thinking that it doesn't have to be perfect, right? It doesn't have to be a tree. It can be tree-ish. If it has, if you're trying to draw a tiger, if it has tiger energy, then it's tiger-ish. And so that ish gives people permission to, be kind to themselves and realize, as long as it brings you joy, then that's a wonderful thing, which is actually another definition of productive joy, is that if it causes good feelings within yourself, right? Forget the rest of the world and even helping other people. If you have to help yourself. So an ishful drawing helps you brings you joy. Keep doing it. Let it flow. Be the ishful thinker.
Thank you for, first of all, being able to paint such a beautiful picture, both figuratively and literally. But what you've done is you've reminded humans that we don't have to live in a fixed mindset. Ish is okay, and it's ishful thinking. I have written down many of the things you said. I cannot wait to recap them. But I think what I am most inspired by is you're letting kindness lead how you approach the world, but then asking of those who read it, your turn, right? Now it's your turn. Now I need you to do something with this, because the knowing doing gap is more of a chasm, right? And we know better, but are we doing better? And so listeners, right now, I want to challenge you to do better, to recognize that nothing is fixed and we can continue to get better day over day over day if we choose to. And the little people are watching us. Marisol was watching her big brother and she didn't think it was crap. She thought it was great.
Right.
So, who are you inspiring today? There are so many cliches we could use right here, right now, but I think what I'm most excited about is the fact that this is out there for people to find. So how would somebody find you, Peter? How would somebody find all of the great things that you're putting out?
Well, thank you. PeterHReynolds.com is a great way to find me, and it's connected to all the other things I'm doing, which includes I have a bookstore in my hometown of Dedham, Massachusetts. If you happen to be in the Boston area, come on over to my bookstore. I'm usually there on Saturday mornings, and probably every morning, actually, having a cup of tea or coffee. And so Peter H, that H stands for Hamilton. I like to say based on a hit Broadway musical, PeterHReynolds.com. If you don't put the H in, you're not going to find me. I think it's a British scientist. So,
Writing. Well, at least he's a good guy, right? Like, that's fun.
And so PeterHReynolds.com, and you'll find also links to Fable Vision, which is my interactive media company that I started 30 years ago. It's still going strong. We work with the best of the best in the industry. We've worked with the Fred Rogers Institute, with Jim Henson Productions, PBS, Sesame Street, Smithsonian, museums, health organizations, people who want to scale out their mission in all the new ways that kids and grown-up kids are getting information, right? It's not television. I mean, it's a little bit television now, but it's so many other things.
Sure.
And we have a team of 60 amazing artists, writers, programmers, and also educational and learning researchers understanding how do you engage with humans. And we love humans. That's one of our number one sayings is, right, what we do, we make humans happy. That is, and then we reverse engineer from there.
We make humans happy. I think that should be everybody's goal.
Right.
I don't think everybody I encounter on a daily basis does that with intentionality. So I'm glad you do. I could talk to you all day, but I know you have other things to do today. So I do have some rapid fire questions for you.
Sure.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Question number one. What's your definition of fun?
Definition of fun is a piece of blank paper and a marker.
Oh, love it. Do you have a favorite color marker that you use when you are trying to be creative?
Honestly, a black Sharpie marker does the trick for me because my imagination fills in all the other colors.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay. How do you know that you are showing up as your authentic self?
Wow, that's a really good question. I guess I'm that's when I'm happiest. So I guess when I'm happy, it must be 100% peak.
Fair. How do you channel your best self on your worst days?
Oh wow, on my worst days. People know me as an optimist, extreme optimist. And but I do have my tough days. I mean, these have been challenging years.
Mm.
And I give myself a little break. I walk away from it all. And, I just built myself a little house on the river and I have a walking path and I just get away. I step away from it. And then I come back and I actually then take a look at, you know, all of these challenges actually end up being inspiration for me because I'm like, oh, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's a complicated and prickly, sharp world out there. And I feel like what I'm doing is actually helping. So that gets me back.
Mm. Sounds like you put the color into the drawing after you've walked away. That's what you're doing. I love it. Okay. Perhaps the toughest question I've asked in a while, because you have said so many brilliant things, but by nature, our brains can only hold on to one major idea in 30 minutes. So, what is the major idea that you want people to walk away with today?
Major ideas: create bravely. Two of my favorite words: create bravely. And it can be art, it can be music, but it doesn't have to be. It can be a relationship, it could be an organization, it could be a brand new idea. But take your imagination, take that blank page, and see it. You have the power to see something that does not yet exist. How cool is that? The word vision is a really wonderful word, one of my favorites, right? You can vision something that does not yet exist. And that is why we have to take care of ourselves, our wonderful minds, our imaginations. And that's why hanging out with kids is a really good idea because little ones, they don't need instructions on how to build a sandcastle. They just dive into the beach and they know how to do it. So let's be as brave as we were when we were little ones and take care of that child inside of you and share your joy.
Peter, that was perfect. Friends, if you didn't get something out of this episode, you were clearly not listening. And so, to recap, I can think of a couple things. First of all, we are all clumsy adults, and we need to give ourselves a little bit of grace in that space and figure out who we are. The more we can figure out who we are, the more we can go from ishful thinking to success. And I think that we need to remember that the best way to create joy or to find productive joy is to help others. And I am just so grateful for you, Peter, for choosing to help others every single day. Thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I hope that you will frame your dot and make sure you sign it and keep sharing your gifts with the world. This world definitely needs people like you to bring joy. And so keep sharing.
Thank you, friends. And you heard it here. So now I need you to go frame your dot and figure out a way today to turn fun into action. Yay!